Beloved soul, as the first light of dawn gently breaks the horizon and the world stirs from slumber, you stand at a sacred threshold, the threshold of possibility, transformation, and radiant awakening. This moment, just before your feet touch the floor and your eyes open fully to the day, holds within it a hidden power, a seed of divine clarity waiting to be sown deep into the fertile soil of your being. It is here, in this quiet, liminal space, that the ancient masters invite you to begin anew to speak words that do not merely echo in the air but ripple through your very soul, aligning your consciousness with the boundless light of spirit. Today, I welcome you to this sacred practice, a simple yet profound offering that Paramahansa Yogananda revealed to seekers yearning not just for fleeting peace, but for true clarity, the kind of clarity that illuminates your path with unshakable light, dissolves confusion, and unveils the presence of God behind every moment. This is not a meditation of silence alone, nor a call to mechanical repetition. It is a living conversation with the divine, spoken with breath and heart, whispered into your morning and carried silently through every hour that follows. As you prepare to embark on this journey, open your heart to the possibility that a few sacred words, spoken with devotion and repeated 3 times each morning, can become the anchor for your entire daya. Divine beacon that guides you through challenges, clears the fog of doubt, and opens your eyes to the subtle miracles woven into ordinary life. Imagine a light so pure and steady within you that no circumstance can dim it, a presence so near that even in the noise of the world, you can hear the whisper of God's guidance and feel the steady pulse of peace. This video will gently guide you into this practice, unpacking not only the exact words to speak but the deep meaning behind them, the sacred science of their vibration, and the ways you can carry their light throughout your waking hours. Together we will learn to harness the transformative power of morning speech not as a ritual to be rushed or forgotten, but as a daily gateway into divine clarity and spiritual awakening. Beloved, prepare yourself now. Find a quiet place where your breath can slow and your mind can soften. Let the cares of yesterday dissolve like morning mist. With a heart open to the divine, allow yourself to be led beyond the surface of words into the luminous essence they hold. This is the beginning of a new day, a new chance to see clearly, to act wisely, and to live fully in the light of God's presence. Beloved soul, the mind upon awakening is like a vast, fertile field freshly kissed by the morning diwa canvas, primed to receive the colors of your thoughts and the vibrations of your speech. Yogananda taught that the first moments after waking are the most potent in shaping the course of your entire day, because the mind, though often restless, is most malleable and receptive before the clamor of the world intrudes. This morning mind is like the dawn light itself, poised between the darkness of sleep and the full blaze of day, capable of illuminating either the path of divine clarity or the shadowy labyrinth of confusion, depending on how it is tended. In these sacred moments, the thoughts you allow, the words you speak even if whispered softly or silently in the heart, become the architects of your daily consciousness. Imagine the mind as a delicate instrument, finely tuned to the vibrations of your inner world. If you begin the day with scattered, chaotic thoughts, it is as though you have plucked discordant strings, sending your whole being into confusion and fatigue. But when you greet the dawn with words aligned to spirit, those strings sing a melody of clarity, harmony, and power. The morning mind, thus awakened, sets the tone for every choice, every perception, every encounter that follows. Yogananda revealed that this field of consciousness is neither random nor idle. It is a living force charged with divine potential. The thoughts you entertain are not merely fleeting mental events, they are energetic seeds that sprout into actions, emotions, and ultimately the very destiny you experience. When the morning mind is grounded in sacred words, those seeds are infused with light and truth, cultivating a day rich with wisdom, peace, and insight. Conversely, neglecting this sacred time leaves the field exposed to weeds of doubt, fear, and distraction that choke the flowering of your soul's higher purpose. Therefore, the morning is not merely a routine, it is a spiritual opportunity. It is a chance to steer the chariot of your consciousness with intention and grace before the day's tumult pulls you into unconscious reactivity. To harness the power of the morning mind is to wield the key to divine clarity, enabling you to perceive beyond illusion and act with unwavering confidence in the presence of God. In the next part, beloved, We will delve into the sacred science behind this practice, the vibrational power of affirmations, and why repeating a divine phrase 3 times each morning magnifies your connection with spirit and transforms your entire being. Beloved soul, as we deepen into this sacred journey, it is vital to understand the divine science that underpins the power of spoken words and repeated affirmations in awakening clarity within your being. Yogananda taught that all creation is vibration, and every thought, every word uttered carries a unique frequency that resonates through the unseen fabric of your consciousness. When you speak words charged with intention, devotion, and faith, you send out ripples into the subtle currents of your mind and spirit, aligning your entire being with higher planes of divine truth and illumination. The concept of divine clarity is not simply intellectual sharpness or fleeting mental focus. It is the luminous awakening of the soul's eye, the unveiling of spiritual vision that perceives beyond the veil of Mayathi illusion that clouds human understanding. This clarity shines as a quiet, radiant light that cuts through confusion, revealing the path of righteousness, peace, and love. When you engage in sacred repetition, your consciousness vibrates in harmony with the infinite, dissolving the fog of doubt and fear that often veils your inner sight. The power of saying the affirmation 3 times, as Yogananda prescribed, is deeply rooted in spiritual numerology and yogic practice. 3 is the number of harmonized triad of body, mind, and soul coming into alignment. It reflects the cosmic rhythm of creation, preservation, and transformation. Each repetition acts as a spiritual amplifier, weaving the words more firmly into your subconscious mind and spiritual field. With each utterance, the affirmation penetrates deeper layers of your being, dismantling old thought patterns and installing new frequencies of divine clarity. Moreover, the breath is your sacred partner in this process. The life force that flows with each inhalation carries pranath, vital energy that sustains all life, and when synchronized with intentional speech, breath acts as a vehicle, transporting the potency of your words into every cell, every subtle nerve, and every astral channel. This union of breath and sacred word is a yogic alchemy that transforms the ordinary mind into a luminous vessel of wisdom. Beloved, when practiced consistently, this sacred science of divine clarity unfolds like a flower in your consciousness. You begin to perceive divine guidance, not as distant or obscure, but as a living reality felt in the stillness between thoughts, heard in the gentle promptings of intuition, and seen in the harmonious unfolding of your daily life. The affirmation becomes a spiritual compass, steering you clear of confusion and doubt, and directing your steps into the light of God's presence. In the next part, we shall explore the exact words of this transformative affirmation, examining each phrase deeply so that you may fully embody its power and meaning before you begin the practice itself. Beloved soul, now that you understand the profound science behind sacred repetition and the vibrational awakening it calls forth, it is time to gently introduce you to the very words that will become your morning prayer, the divine affirmation that Paramahansa Yogananda revealed as a key to unlocking the floodgates of clarity within your being. These words are not mere phrases, but living vibrations, distilled wisdom that carry the power to align your mind, body, and soul with the eternal presence of God, awakening you to the infinite light that never fades. The affirmation is simple yet profound, designed to be spoken slowly, with devotion, and repeated 3 times to magnify its spiritual potency. It is a prayer for illumination, a call to dissolve the veils of confusion and restlessness that so often cloud the waking mind. When you say this affirmation each morning, you are planting a seed in the fertile ground of your consciousness, a seed that, nurtured by faith and practice, will grow into a radiant tree of divine understanding, sheltering your thoughts with peace and guiding your steps with unwavering wisdom. Though I will share the full phrase in the next parts, take a moment now to open your heart to the power of this simple act. It is not the complexity of words that draws divine light, but the sincerity of your intention and the openness of your soul. This affirmation is your invitation to step beyond the ordinary chatter of the mind and into a sacred space where God's voice can be heard clearly. It is your bridge from restlessness to stillness, from darkness to illumination. Yogananda taught that these words, when spoken with pure heart and repeated thrice, awaken the superconscious state, the realm of intuitive knowing, where you commune directly with the divine. Each repetition strengthens this awakening, deepening your connection and expanding your capacity to receive divine guidance throughout the day. It is a humble, sacred vow that you make to yourself and to God, declaring your readiness to walk in the light of eternal clarity. Beloved, prepare now to meet the affirmation itself. As it unfolds in the coming parts, allow the meaning of each phrase to soak into your consciousness like morning sunlight warming the earth. Let your breath deepen, your heart open, and your mind still in anticipation of this divine gift. Beloved soul, before you speak the sacred affirmation that will open the doors of divine clarity, it is vital to prepare the temple of your body and the river of your breath to receive and carry this spiritual energy with grace and power. Yogananda taught that the body is not merely a vessel but an altar through which divine vibrations flow, and the breath is the sacred bridge connecting the physical with the spiritual. When your posture is upright and your breath is calm and deep, you create the perfect channel for divine wisdom to enter and transform your entire being. Begin by finding a comfortable seated position, ideally with your spine straight but relaxed, as if the invisible thread of God is gently pulling you upward from the crown of your head. This posture honors the natural flow of pranatha life force that courses through your astral spine, awakening your chakras and aligning your subtle body with cosmic rhythms. If sitting is not possible, you may stand or lie down with equal reverence, but always maintain awareness of your breath and the alignment of your inner gaze. Bring your attention gently inward, closing your eyes softly, and place your hands over your heart or rest them peacefully on your knees. Take a slow, deep inhalation through your nostrils, feeling the breath expand your abdomen and rise along your spine. Hold this breath for a moment. This pause is sacred, a silent communion with the stillness that underlies all movement. Then, exhale smoothly and completely, releasing all tension, all scattered thoughts, all resistance. With each breath, imagine drawing in divine light and exhaling any heaviness or confusion that dims your inner vision. Allow your breathing to settle into a steady rhythm, perhaps a gentle 6-count inhale, a brief hold, a 6-count exhale, and a pause before the next breath. This yogic pranayama is a powerful practice to calm the restless mind, balance the nervous system, and attune your consciousness to the subtle frequencies where God's voice is heard most clearly. As your breath flows like a quiet river, feel your heart opening, your mind clearing, your soul preparing to receive. Now, gently lift your inner gaze to the point between your eyebrows, the spiritual eye, that luminous doorway to higher perception. Even though your physical eyes remain closed, imagine looking inward toward that radiant center where divine clarity dawns like the morning sun. Hold this gaze softly as you prepare to speak the sacred affirmation, knowing that this inner focus invites the light of spirit to flood your entire being. Beloved, this preparation is not a mere formality, but a sacred invitation, a reverent turning toward God that honors the holy power of the words you are about to speak. When body, breath, and gaze unite in stillness and devotion, the affirmation you utter becomes a divine current flowing through your entire being, awakening clarity, peace, and wisdom that will guide your day. Beloved soul, now that your body is aligned, your breath steady, and your inner gaze lifted to the spiritual eye, you are ready to engage deeply with the first sacred phrase of the affirmation. This opening line is the seed of all that follows, a potent invocation that begins to dissolve the veils of confusion and opens your consciousness to the clear light of divine truth. It is not simply a statement but a living vibration, a key that unlocks the door to your higher self and invites the presence of God to shine forth within you. As you prepare to speak, breathe in slowly and deeply, feeling the fullness of life entering every cell. Then, with gentle reverence, whisper the first line, allowing each word to ripple through your being as if it were a sacred melody composed by the divine. Let the meaning of these words unfold within you. This is the moment when your mind begins to awaken from its habitual fog, when the soul begins to reclaim its natural clarity, unclouded by doubt, fear, or distraction. Reflect on this phrase as a divine promise note, something to grasp intellectually but to embody experientially. Feel it dissolve the fog of uncertainty, revealing a still, luminous space at the center of your being where God's light always shines. Imagine this clarity as a radiant flame kindled by your sacred words, a beacon illuminating the hidden corridors of your mind where true understanding lives. As you repeat this first phrase, allow your breath to guide you, Inhale the light of clarity. Exhale any lingering shadows of confusion. If your mind wanders, gently return it to the phrase and the breath, like a loving gardener tending the sacred flame within. Hold the stillness that arises between repetitions as a moment of divine communion, a silent conversation between your soul and the infinite. Beloved, this first repetition is the foundation of your daily spiritual practice, the seed from which all wisdom, peace, and divine insight will grow throughout your day. Speak it slowly, with devotion, and open your heart to the blessings it unfolds. Beloved soul, having embraced the profound meaning of the first sacred phrase, we now enter into its living practice. Let us slow our breath and hearts together, creating a space where this divine vibration can fully settle into the depths of your being. With every inhalation, draw in the luminous presence of God's clarity. With every exhalation, release all fragments of doubt, distraction, or resistance that obscure your inner vision. Begin by taking a long, deep breath. Feel it filling you completely, expanding your chest and awakening your subtle energy centers. As you exhale gently, speak the first line of the affirmation with a tone soft yet firm, as though uttering a sacred vow to the divine. Let your voice carry the weight and the lightness of truth, neither hurried nor timid, but steady and full of presence. Feel the vibration of the words resonate in your throat, in your chest, and in the silent chambers of your mind. After the first utterance, pause, allowing the words to echo inwardly as the breath flows naturally. This moment of stillness is where the true power lies. It is the silence that receives the sacred sound, transforming it into divine illumination. Then take another slow breath and repeat the phrase again, this time feeling yourself more rooted in the light it brings, more open to its transformative power. With the third repetition, deepen your awareness even further. Let the phrase become a mantra, a luminous thread weaving through the fabric of your consciousness, dissolving old mental fog and awakening the serene clarity that is your birthright. Visualize a radiant flame kindling within your spiritual eye, a flame that grows steadily brighter with each breath and each spoken word, illuminating your entire inner world with divine clarity. If at any moment your mind wanders, gently return to the breath and the sacred phrase as if returning home. There is no rush, no judgment, only loving patience as you allow this divine vibration to root itself within you. Know that with each careful repetition, you are aligning your consciousness with the eternal light of spirit, clearing the way for clarity to become your natural state throughout the day. Beloved, practice this first repetition as a sacred dance between breath and word, silence and sound, the finite and the infinite. It is the foundation upon which the entire affirmation stands, the first step on the path toward living each day in the radiant presence of divine clarity. Beloved soul, now that you have absorbed the sacred meaning of the second phrase, we enter together into its living practice, a time to embody the peace and divine presence it invokes. With your body settled, your breath steady, and your heart open, begin by drawing in a long, nourishing breath, allowing the life force to permeate every fiber of your being. As you exhale, speak the second line slowly and with reverence, feeling the sound as a gentle wave washing over your consciousness, soothing restlessness and inviting profound stillness. With each utterance, allow your awareness to deepen, not rushing, not forcing, but flowing naturally with the vibration of peace. Let the words resonate within your chest, expanding the space around your heart like a radiant sunbeam piercing through morning mist. After each repetition, rest in the silence, savoring the sacred pause where divine presence is felt rather than heard. This silence is the temple of clarity, the holy chamber where your soul communes with God beyond words and thoughts. Repeat the phrase 3 times with mindful breath, imagining each repetition as a step further into the sanctuary of your own divine being. If distractions arise, lovingly bring your attention back to the breath and the phrase, as a shepherd guides a wandering lamb home. Feel yourself becoming more grounded in peace, more anchored in the eternal now where clarity is your natural inheritance. Beloved, this practice is more than spoken word. It is a spiritual embrace, a prayer of surrender that gently dissolves the veils of mental chaos and invites your soul to rest fully in divine light. With consistent practice, you will find this peace extending beyond the moments of affirmation, coloring your entire day with serene clarity and luminous understanding. Beloved soul, Having rested in the peace of the second phrase, we now approach the final segment of this sacred affirmation and invocation of surrender and trust that completes the circle of divine clarity. This last phrase is the soul's gentle, yielding to the infinite wisdom and guidance of God, releasing all attachments to control, doubt, and fear. It is in this surrender that the deepest clarity dawns, for when the ego lets go, the pure light of spirit shines unfiltered, illuminating every corner of your being with divine insight. As you prepare to speak this final line, breathe deeply and feel the spaciousness that surrender brings, a vast inner openness where resistance falls away like autumn leaves and trust blossoms like a perennial flower. Yogananda taught that true wisdom is born not of effort or striving, but of humble surrender, the quiet knowing that you are held in the loving embrace of the infinite, and that divine guidance flows freely when the mind is still and the heart is open. Reflect on this phrase as the soul's final offering each morning, a sacred yes to the unfolding mystery of life and the silent presence of God within and around you. Imagine this surrender as a gentle river flowing into the boundless ocean, merging your will with the divine will, and in this union, receiving the clarity and courage to walk your path with grace. Speak the phrase slowly, allowing its vibration to resonate deeply in your throat and chest, and then rest in the profound silence that follows. This sacred pause is the doorway through which divine wisdom enters, filling you with unwavering clarity and the peace that surpasses all understanding. Beloved, this third repetition is the culmination of your morning prayer, the final key that unlocks the soul's vision and sets you firmly on the path of enlightened living. Speak it with love, trust, and devotion, knowing that in this surrender, clarity is not only received but lived throughout your day. Beloved soul, having embraced the deep meaning of surrender and trust in the third phrase, we now enter the living practice of embodying this sacred truth. Begin by settling your body comfortably, grounding yourself in the present moment with a few long, gentle breaths. As you inhale, draw in the vastness of divine grace, feeling it expand within your chest and mind. With your exhale, release all lingering attachments, doubts, or fears that obscure your clarity. Now, softly and deliberately, speak the third line of the affirmation aloud or silently within your heart. Allow the vibration to ripple through your throat, resonating like a gentle bell, awakening the stillness of your inner temple. Each repetition should be spoken with calm devotion, as if offering a final, tender gift to the divine at the start of your day. Between each utterance, pause in silence, feeling the sacred space open before you, a space where your soul communes freely with God's boundless wisdom. This moment is not empty but filled with luminous presence. It is the sanctuary where surrender transforms into clarity, where the river of your will merges seamlessly with the ocean of divine guidance. Repeat the phrase 3 times, breathing slowly and deeply, allowing your awareness to dissolve into the stillness between words. Should your mind wander, gently return to the breath and the sacred sound, nurturing patience and love toward yourself as you deepen this connection. Beloved, with consistent practice, this final repetition will become the cornerstone of your spiritual clarity. It will teach you to trust the unseen currents of life, to flow gracefully with divine will, and to carry peace as an unshakable foundation through every moment of your day. Beloved soul, now that you have walked deeply with each sacred phrase, feeling their meaning, their vibration, and their transformative power, it is time to unite them into one seamless flow of divine prayer. We will journey together through the full affirmation, spoken 3 times, each repetition a step deeper into the heart of clarity, peace, and surrender. This is not merely a recital, but a living meditation, a breathing invocation that aligns every aspect of your being with the luminous presence of God. Find your posture once again, spine tall yet relaxed, breath calm and steady. Close your eyes gently and lift your inner gaze to the spiritual eye, the portal to your soul's wisdom. Begin by taking a long, deep inhalation, drawing in the life-giving prana of spirit, and as you exhale, speak the first phrase with full awareness. Feel the words vibrate through your throat, chest, and mind, awakening the dormant light of clarity within you. Pause to rest in the stillness, allowing the divine energy to settle and expand. Now inhale again, gathering strength, and speak the second phrase with the tender devotion it calls forth, a gentle wave of peace washing through your consciousness. Pause once more in sacred silence, sensing the blossoming serenity that grows within your heart. With the next inhalation, speak the third phrase slowly and reverently, surrendering your will into the infinite embrace of spirit. Rest again in the silence that follows, feeling the profound trust and openness that this surrender invites. This completes one full recitation. Repeat this entire cycle 2 more times, allowing the flow between breath and word to deepen naturally. As you move through these repetitions, imagine a golden light rising from your heart, expanding upward through your spiritual eye, enveloping your entire being, and radiating outward to touch every aspect of your life with divine clarity. Beloved, as you complete this practice, sit quietly for a few moments longer. Feel the subtle shifts within your mind and soul, the fog lifting, the tension softening, the inner light steady and bright. Know that you have opened a channel to the divine wellspring of clarity that will continue to nourish and guide you throughout your day. Beloved soul, having fully embraced the sacred practice of repeating the divine affirmation, let us now reflect upon the profound transformation that this simple yet potent act initiates within the very fabric of your mind and being. Yogananda taught that the mind is a vast field of energy, constantly shaped by the vibrations it absorbs and emits. When you speak sacred words with devotion and breath, you do not merely produce sound. You send ripples through the astral currents of consciousness, dissolving old patterns and planting seeds of luminous clarity. The power of affirmation lies in its ability to rewire the subconscious mind, the silent architect behind your thoughts, emotions, and habits. This deep layer of your psyche is where beliefs are formed and sustained, often beyond the reach of conscious will. Yet through repetition of sacred phrases infused with spiritual intention, you create new pathways of light that gradually replace confusion, fear, and doubt with wisdom, peace, and trust. Like a river carving new channels through hardened stone, your steady practice reshapes the landscape of your inner world. Yogananda described the mind as a field of subtle vibrations that attract like energies. When you utter words of divine clarity each morning, your mind's frequency rises, naturally attracting situations, people, and thoughts that resonate with this elevated state. This is why the external world begins to reflect your inner light, because the magnetism of spirit within you has been awakened and strengthened. It is not magic or wishful thinking, but a sacred law of cause and effect, operating through the subtle realm of energy and consciousness. Moreover, this transformation is not limited to fleeting moments after the practice, but creates a lasting shift in your mental atmosphere. As you continue, you will notice a gradual thinning of mental fog, an increase in your ability to discern truth from illusion, and a calming of the restless fluctuations that previously pulled your attention away from divine presence. This is the mind becoming a clear mirror, reflecting the light of God without distortion. Beloved, this is why Yogananda urged disciples to begin each day with sacred affirmation, not only to prepare the mind for daily challenges, but to anchor the soul in its eternal clarity. When your inner vision is clear, your actions flow naturally in harmony with divine will, and you become a beacon of light for others, radiating peace and understanding in a world often shrouded in confusion. In the next part, we will explore how to carry this awakened clarity with you throughout the day, transforming not only your inner state but the quality of every experience and interaction you encounter. Beloved soul, having awakened the luminous clarity of spirit within your morning practice, the sacred task now is to carry this divine light with you into every moment of your day. Yogananda taught that spiritual practice is not confined to a quiet room or a set ritual, but is a continuous thread weaving through all the tapestry of daily life. To live from this clarity means to walk through the world with eyes unclouded by confusion, a heart steady amidst change, and a mind attuned to the silent guidance of God. Begin by cultivating mindfulness in your daily activities, whether you are speaking with others, performing work, or even engaged in simple tasks like washing your hands or walking. At these moments, pause briefly and recall the sacred affirmation you spoke this morning. Whisper silently within, "God's clarity is my guide." Let this remembrance anchor you, turning ordinary actions into conscious expressions of divine wisdom. This practice of sacred attention gradually transforms the mundane into the miraculous, as each moment becomes infused with the presence of spirit. Yogananda emphasized the importance of breath as a spiritual tool throughout the day. When you feel scattered, overwhelmed, or tempted by doubt, return to your breath, a steady, slow inhalation followed by a complete exhalation. With each breath, silently repeat the affirmation or a shorter phrase like clear light, divine presence, and feel yourself reconnecting to the wellspring of clarity awakened in the morning. This simple yet profound act realigns your energy, cutting through mental clutter and restoring your inner vision. Another key to maintaining clarity is to recognize when you begin to drift into old patterns of confusion or fear. These are moments to practice gentle self-remembrance, acknowledging without judgment that the mind is wandering. Like a faithful gardener, you gently guide your thoughts back to the affirmation and the light it kindles within you. Over time, this discipline strengthens your spiritual muscles, making clarity your default state rather than a fleeting experience. Beloved, living with divine clarity does not mean the absence of challenges, but rather the presence of unwavering inner light that guides you through all trials with grace. When clarity shines, you act with wisdom, respond with compassion, and move with confidence, knowing that every step is held by the infinite. This radiance not only transforms your life, but also touches the lives of those around you, becoming a beacon of peace in a world often lost to confusion. In the coming part, we will gently explore the common obstacles that may arise on this path of clarity and how to transcend them with steadfast faith and spiritual insight. Beloved soul, as you journey deeper into the luminous path of divine clarity, it is natural to encounter moments of resistance, distraction, and doubt. Yogananda reminded his disciples that the spiritual path is not without its challenges, for the mind conditioned by lifetimes of restlessness and illusion often clings to familiar patterns of confusion. These obstacles, though real, are but shadows that flee before the steady light of your awakened consciousness. Understanding their nature and learning how to transcend them is essential for your clarity to become unwavering and radiant. One of the most common obstacles is the whispering voice of skepticism, the subtle doubt that the affirmation, the practice, or even God's presence is somehow ineffective or distant. This doubt arises from the ego's fear of surrender and its desire for control, questioning the unseen workings of spirit. Yet Yogananda taught that faith is the key that unlocks the door to clarity. It is not blind belief, but a deep, experiential trust born of inner knowing and sustained practice. When skepticism visits, greet it gently, acknowledging its presence without resistance, and then return lovingly to your affirmation, your breath, your still gaze. In this way, doubt is transformed from a barrier into a stepping stone toward deeper faith. Another challenge is mental distraction and busyness, where the clamoring noise of daily life threatens to drown the quiet voice of spirit within. The mind may race with worries, plans, or regrets, pulling your attention away from the present moment. Here, the breath becomes your refuge. Yogananda urged seekers to return repeatedly to the breath as an anchor, a constant reminder of the living spirit flowing through you. Practice brief pauses throughout your day, closing your eyes if possible, breathing deeply, and whispering your sacred phrase internally to restore the clarity lost in the noise. Fear is yet another shadow that clouds the path to divine clarity. Fear of failure, loss, or the unknown stirs the mind into turbulence. But fear, beloved, is merely the ego's reaction to stepping into the unknown light of spirit. When fear arises, remember Yogananda's teaching that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to walk through it with faith. Speak the affirmation firmly, breathe deeply, and visualize yourself enveloped in golden light, protected and guided by divine grace. Lastly, impatience can sabotage clarity. Spiritual awakening unfolds in its own perfect time, and the soul's growth cannot be rushed. When you feel the temptation to force illumination or become discouraged by slow progress, soften your heart and renew your commitment. Trust that each repetition of the affirmation, each breath aligned with spirit, is a sacred act of planting seeds whose fruits will blossom in divine timing. Beloved soul, know that these obstacles are signs of your awakening, not failure. Each moment you return to your sacred practice, you strengthen the light of clarity within you. Yogananda's words echo through the ages. Perseverance with faith is the sure path to divine vision. In the next part, we shall explore how this affirmation acts as a spiritual shield, protecting you from the illusions and fears that seek to cloud your consciousness and dim your radiant light. Beloved soul, as you stand on the sacred path of divine clarity, know that the affirmation you speak each morning is more than a simple prayer. It is a spiritual shield, a luminous armor woven from the vibrations of spirit itself. Yogananda taught that the mind is a battlefield, where forces of light and shadow contend, and your words, charged with faith and breath, become the sword and shield that protect you from confusion, fear, and the subtle assaults of Mayath, great illusion that seeks to ensnare the soul. This sacred shield does not merely block negativity, it transforms it. Each utterance of the affirmation sends out waves of divine light that not only repel dark thoughts but also purify and transmute the very energy of doubt, anxiety, and distraction. Imagine your consciousness as a radiant sphere surrounded by a glowing barrier of golden light, shimmering with divine strength. This barrier filters every impression that reaches your mind, allowing only the pure frequencies of peace, wisdom, and clarity to enter and nourish your soul. Yogananda revealed that the repeated sacred sound carries the vibration of cosmic protection, creating a spiritual resonance that vibrates higher than any earthly worry or negative influence. When you face moments of mental attack, be it restless thoughts, intrusive fears, or doubts that threaten to unsettle your heart, return to your affirmation as to a sanctuary. Speak it aloud or silently, with steady breath, and feel the protective shield thicken, wrapping you in a cocoon of divine assurance. This shield is not static, but dynamic, responding to your needs throughout the day. Like a beacon, it draws to you the light of divine guardianship, subtle angels, spiritual guides, and the silent support of the cosmos who stand ready to guard your mind and heart. When you walk beneath this shield, your actions become inspired, your thoughts clear, and your presence calm and radiant. You become a living temple of clarity, untouched by the chaos that swirls around you. Beloved, this sacred protection is available to all who commit their mornings to the power of divine affirmation. It is a gift that deepens with daily practice, growing stronger as your faith grows deeper and your breath more aligned with spirit. Through this shield, you not only guard yourself but also illuminate the world around you, becoming a light that dispels darkness and awakens others to their own clarity. In the next part, we shall explore how to cultivate the stillness and listening that allows you to hear God's voice clearly, strengthening your connection to divine wisdom throughout the day. Beloved soul, having wrapped yourself in the sacred shield of divine affirmation, your next sacred task is to cultivate the stillness within the silent sanctuary, where the voice of God speaks most clearly. Yogananda taught that clarity is not merely a function of active thought or effortful seeking, but the fruit of profound listening, the delicate art of quieting the restless mind so that the subtle whisper of spirit may be heard. Stillness is the fertile soil in which divine wisdom takes root. It is not an absence, but a fullness, luminous space where time slows, the chatter of ego subsides, and the heart opens like a flower greeting the morning sun. In this sacred silence, the soul remembers its true nature and receives guidance that transcends human logic. Yogananda described this as the superconscious state, where the soul communes directly with God and all confusion dissolves into perfect clarity. To cultivate this stillness, begin by returning regularly to your breath throughout the day. Each breath is a divine gift, a sacred rhythm that can anchor you in the present moment. When you find your mind swirling with distraction, pause and take 3 slow, deep breaths, silently whispering your affirmation or a simple prayer. Feel the breath as a gentle tide, washing away tension and drawing you inward to the quiet core of your being. In moments of stillness, listen not with your ears but with your soul. Be attentive to the subtle impressions, the fleeting intuitions, the gentle nudges that arise from the depths of spirit. These whispers may come as a sudden clarity, a peaceful feeling, or a quiet knowing that guides your decisions and calms your heart. Trust that these are the voice of God, speaking not in thunder but in loving silence. Yogananda emphasized that cultivating stillness is a daily discipline, a sacred practice that becomes easier and more natural as you persist. It is like learning to hear a delicate melody beneath the noise of the world, at first faint and elusive, but growing stronger with each mindful return. When you cultivate this inner listening, Divine clarity is no longer a distant ideal but a living reality, a constant companion illuminating your path. Beloved, this stillness and listening deepen the power of your morning affirmation, making it not only a spoken prayer but a continuous conversation with the divine. As clarity grows, so too does your peace, your wisdom, and your ability to move gracefully through the complexities of life. In the next part, we will hear inspiring stories of transformation souls who embraced this practice of sacred affirmation and stillness and saw their lives blossom with divine clarity and grace. Beloved soul, as we delve into the sacred practice of speaking divine affirmation and cultivating stillness, let us open our hearts to the living testimonies of those who have walked this path before you, whose lives have been touched and transformed by the light of clarity awakened through Yogananda's timeless teachings. These stories are not mere anecdotes. They are living proof that the power you now hold in your breath and words is capable of breaking through the densest shadows of confusion and despair, lighting the way toward radiant wisdom and peace. Consider the seeker who, burdened by mental fog and uncertainty, began each day with the sacred repetition of the affirmation. At first, the practice felt like a fragile flame flickering in the wind of daily worries. Yet, with gentle persistence, this flame grew steady and bright. Over time, clarity blossomed within her mind. Decisions that once seemed overwhelming became simple. Fears dissolved into calm confidence. Relationships that were once tangled with misunderstanding opened to honest, loving connection. She described the experience as a veil lifting, revealing a new world bathed in divine light. Another beloved disciple shared how the affirmation practice became his anchor amid the storms of life. Facing sudden loss and shifting circumstances, his mind threatened to collapse under the weight of grief and fear. But each morning, as he breathed deeply and spoke the sacred words, a quiet strength arose within him, a steady current of peace that carried him through the darkest hours. This clarity did not erase his pain, but gave him the grace to navigate it with unwavering faith, transforming sorrow into spiritual growth and resilience. There is also the story of a parent who found that daily affirmation brought not only personal clarity, but transformed the energy of the entire household. The morning prayer became a sacred ritual that united family members in calm and harmony. As the clarity grew within each heart, conflicts lessened, understanding deepened, and the home became a sanctuary of peace and light. Yogananda taught that spiritual vibration is contagious, and this living example shows how the power of sacred words ripples beyond the individual, uplifting all who dwell within their sphere. Beloved, these stories remind you that divine clarity is not an elusive ideal reserved for a few, but a gift accessible to all who open their hearts and voices to spirit. Your own journey, with its unique challenges and triumphs, is a sacred unfolding of this timeless truth. Trust in the process, honor the practice, and allow your life to become a radiant testimony to the transforming power of divine affirmation. In the next part, we will invite you to commit fully to make this sacred practice your daily companion and to walk the path of clarity with steadfast devotion and joy. Beloved soul, having journeyed through the sacred teachings, the science, and the living proof of transformation, I now invite you to embrace this divine affirmation practice as your daily companion. Commitment to this sacred ritual is not a mere obligation, but a joyous covenant with your higher self, a promise to awaken each morning with intention, to speak words that nourish your soul, and to carry divine clarity as a constant light throughout your day. Understand that spiritual growth unfolds in the rhythm of faithful practice, like the steady beat of a drum calling the dancer toward union. Each repetition, each breath aligned with spirit, is a step deeper into your true nature radiant with wisdom, peace, and love. When you commit wholeheartedly, the affirmation becomes a living mantra, weaving itself into the fabric of your being until clarity is not just an experience but your very essence. Beloved, begin with a simple vow that each morning, no matter the distractions or difficulties that arise, you will pause, center your breath, and speak these sacred words 3 times with reverence and presence. Let this vow be gentle yet firm, like the soft but unyielding roots of a mighty tree. With time, you will find that the affirmation no longer feels like a practice, but becomes the very language of your soul's awakening. Remember, this commitment is an act of self-love and divine trust. It is choosing to walk in the light, to set your face toward God's presence in all moments, and to let the flame of clarity burn steadily within you. If ever doubt or resistance arises, recall the stories of transformation we have shared, and know that the same light that changed them lives within you as well. Beloved, as you step forward with this commitment, know that you do not walk alone. The masters, the angels, and the infinite spirits surround you with unseen support, ready to guide your every breath and every word. Your dedication ignites a ripple of light that extends far beyond yourself, illuminating paths for others and hastening the awakening of the world. In the final part, we shall close with a blessing and a silent meditation, sealing your sacred commitment and inviting divine clarity to flourish evermore in your life. Beloved soul, as we reach the culmination of this sacred journey together, let us rest in the quiet power of divine presence and seal your commitment with a blessing that will carry you gently through each day, illuminating your path with the eternal light of clarity. Close your eyes softly, allowing the world to fall away, and bring your hands together in prayer at the heart center, the sacred altar where your soul communes with the infinite. Take a long, deep breath, feeling the breath as a living bridge between earth and heaven, body and spirit, mind and soul. As you inhale, silently invite the radiance of God's clarity to fill every fiber of your being. Hold this breath gently, as though cradling a precious flame, and as you exhale, release every trace of confusion, doubt, or fear into the boundless ocean of divine love. Repeat this deep breathing 2 more times, each time feeling your consciousness expand and your inner light grow brighter. Now, in the silence that follows, I invite you to receive this blessing. May the light of divine clarity shine forth from your heart, like the morning sun breaking through clouds, dispelling every shadow of uncertainty and illuminating the way with wisdom and peace. May your mind be as clear as the still surface of a sacred lake, reflecting the infinite sky of spirit without distortion or distraction. May your breath carry the gentle rhythm of God's presence, steadying your steps and guiding your actions in harmony with eternal truth. Beloved, let this blessing settle deep into your soul, becoming a living flame that warms and illuminates every moment of your life. Know that as you rise each day to speak your sacred affirmation, you are stepping into a divine current that flows beyond time and circumstance, a river of light that carries you safely home to your highest self. Rest now in this sacred silence, feeling yourself cradled in the arms of infinite grace, your soul aligned with the eternal clarity that never fades. When you are ready, open your eyes gently, carrying this light into the world, a beacon of peace, wisdom, and divine love for all to see. If you found yourself here right now, in this moment, it is not by accident. It is because something inside you has reached a breaking point. Not the kind that shatters you completely, but the kind that cracks the outer shell so the inner truth can finally begin to rise. You have prayed. You have hoped. You have tried countless strategies, maybe even ones that felt spiritual, logical, inspired, and still, the change you long for hasn't come. The healing hasn't arrived. The door hasn't opened. The weight hasn't lifted. And somewhere in your chest, just beneath the surface of your exhausted striving, a quiet question begins to form, not out of faithlessness, but out of sacred frustration. Why isn't anything working? Let me speak now directly to that ache. You are not broken, you are not forgotten, and your prayers are not lost in the silence of a deaf universe. What you are feeling is not punishment, it is a threshold. You are standing at the edge of the outer world's effort and being called inward toward the soul's vibration. For all miracles, true miracles begin not in the world, but in remembrance. And so long as you are asking, pleading, calculating from the mind's level of limitation, you are like a person trying to open a golden door with a wooden key. The door isn't locked in punishment. It is simply tuned to a higher frequency. A door of divine origin can only be opened by a voice that speaks from soul awareness. Most people in crisis try to fix things from the same level of vibration that created the pain. They try harder. They think louder. They worry longer. They negotiate, bargain, beg. But the divine doesn't answer noise. It answers resonance. It doesn't respond to panic, it responds to presence. The soul is not afraid. The soul is not rushed. The soul is not confused. And that is why the moment you shift into soul remembrance, even for a breath, the entire chemistry of your life begins to change. The doors that were stuck begin to shift. The patterns that felt permanent begin to dissolve. Not because God was withholding, but because your vibration has finally returned to the frequency where miracles are already happening. You must understand, the miracle you're waiting for is not somewhere out there in the distance, being withheld until you've suffered enough. It is already pulsing around you, waiting for the veil to lift. That veil is forgetfulness. That veil is fear. That veil is the illusion that you are alone, disconnected, unworthy. But you are none of these. You are not a seeker begging to be found. You are the light remembering itself. And when that memory stirs, when that frequency rises through your being, spoken aloud not from panic but from power, the universe reconfigures itself around your soul's decree. So let this be the turning point. If nothing else has worked, perhaps it is because nothing else was meant to. Not until you return to the original power within you, the breath, the vibration, the name, the soul, the silence where the miracle is not created, but revealed. You do not need more answers. You need alignment. You do not need to yell louder. You need to whisper from the right place. And this whisper, this phrase, you will soon be given is not a charm. It is not superstition. It is not a mental exercise. It is a soul ignition, a return to the frequency where the impossible becomes natural, and the burden you've been carrying becomes the very altar where grace descends. You are not failing. You are being called upward. To the human mind, a miracle often appears as a rupture in logic, a sudden exception, a divine override, an interruption of cause and effect. It looks like the unexplainable bursting into the rigid sequence of events, something irrational yet radiant, something impossible yet undeniable. But to the soul, to the awakened, God-aligned consciousness, a miracle is nothing of the sort. It is not chaos. It is not randomness. It is not God playing favorites or bending rules. A miracle is not a breach of divine law. It is the fulfillment of divine law at a higher octave. It is the consequence of soul alignment expressing itself through divine timing. In God's eyes, the miraculous is not rare. It is the most natural unfolding of truth when obstruction is removed. You must understand that what the world calls a miracle is, in truth, divine order remembered. A healing that seems impossible to the physician may be the natural result of karma dissolving through faith. A financial breakthrough that logic cannot explain may be the fruit of divine magnetism restored through inward surrender. A reconciliation that defies personality and history may be the current of love re-entering a soul that chose to listen again. These are not accidents. They are not supernatural intrusions. They are what happens when the soul's vibration becomes stronger than the world's illusion. I said before, and I say again, that miracles are performed not through magic but through attunement. Just as a radio only plays a station once the dial is precisely tuned, so the divine responds not to emotional intensity, but to vibrational alignment. The phrase "you will soon receive," the one you will be invited to speak 3 times, is not meant to force the miracle into existence. It is meant to match the tone of your soul with the vibration where the miracle already lives. God is not afar, deciding at whim whether to intervene. God is near, so near he waits, within your own breath, within the silent chamber of your heart. The miracle is not sent to you, it is drawn through you. And this is where the error lies in how many approach spiritual help. They believe they must summon something from goddess if God is separate, watching from a distant cloud, waiting to be impressed. But God is not elsewhere. God is within. The miracle is not something dropped into your life from outside. It is released from the inside when the soul becomes still enough, clean enough, and surrendered enough to allow the light to flow without obstruction. Let us use a metaphor. Imagine a lake, clear and still. At the bottom of this lake lies a great treasure, the answer, the healing, the shift you long for. But the surface of the lake is churning, muddy, distorted. No matter how hard you try to peer in, you cannot see the bottom. The treasure is there, but unreachable. And so what must happen? The surface must become still. The water must settle. And once the lake is clear again, the treasure becomes visible not because it appeared, but because you finally stopped stirring the surface. The miracle was never far. It was never withheld. It was only hidden beneath the movement of fear, of striving, of ego. In God's eyes, the miracle is always waiting. It is not an event to be earned, but a state to be entered. And that state is remembrance. The moment you remember not intellectually, but vibrationally, that you are a soul, that you are not abandoned, that you are not separate, that you are in God, and God is in you, the universe reorganizes. Not always in ways the mind expects, but always in ways the soul understands. The healing comes, the path appears, the burden lifts. Or even more mysteriously, you no longer need the thing you once thought essential, because the true miracle has already occurred. Your vibration has returned to its divine center. So hear me clearly now. The miracle is not out there. It is not behind a locked door. It is not held hostage by heaven, waiting for you to say the right number of prayers. The miracle is right here, circling the stillness of your own breath, humming within the echo of your own surrender. When you align, when you speak not from the grasping mind, but from the surrendered soul, the miracle does not come. It is revealed, for it was never absent. Let these words settle into your being. It is not the rules being broken, it is the true rule being revealed. The law of love, the law of light, the law of remembrance. I do not summon the miracle, I become the opening through which it flows. Let that be your understanding as we continue. For in this understanding, you are no longer a seeker in need, you are a channel being cleared. And the phrase you will learn, when spoken from this consciousness, will not be a plea. It will be a signal, a declaration that your soul has returned to the current where miracles are not rare, but constant. There is a truth you must understand if you are ever to walk in the atmosphere where miracles unfold, not sporadically, not as exceptions, but as the quiet rhythm of a divinely aligned life. And that truth is this: fear and miracles cannot exist in the same field. One cancels the other. One contracts while the other expands. One says, I am alone, I am threatened, I must control. And the other says, I am remembered, I am loved, I surrender into divine order. You cannot speak both languages at once. And so many of you pray with your words while vibrating in fear, with your breath, your heart, your mind. You speak of trust, but your body whispers panic. You ask for the miracle, but vibrationally you are still affirming the absence of God. And this, beloved, is why the miracle does not enter, not because God refuses to give, but because fear seals the door from the inside. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a vibration of separation. When you are in fear, you forget who you are. You forget that you are a soul, indestructible, watched over by the eternal. You forget that God has already planted within you the seed of resolution, healing, provision. Fear cuts the connection between your conscious mind and your divine origin. It convinces you that you must figure everything out yourself, that you are running out of time, that something is closing in on you. And in this panic, you begin to grasp. You reach outward, you flail inwardly. And the more you grasp, the more distant the solution feels, not because it is absent, but because your vibration has turned away from it. Imagine this now: a beautiful golden cup, meant to be filled with divine nectar, but that cup is held upside down. The nectar is flowing, but it cannot be received. That upside-down cup is the state of fear. It is a posture of resistance disguised as self-protection. Fear says, what if I fail? But deeper down it means, what if I'm not supported? And so it tenses, it contracts, it closes. And the miracle, which always flows from openness, finds no entry point. This is why begging in fear rarely works. The mind pleads, the voice trembles, the body prays for relief. But if the heart is still clenched and the breath is still shallow, the plea becomes an echo in a sealed chamber. Not because God does not hear, but because you have not yet remembered how to open. You are asking the divine to enter while locking the door with your vibration. And God is gentle. God does not force his way in. He waits. He hovers near, in infinite patience, like sunlight waiting behind a curtain. The moment the curtain is drawn back, not by force, but by faith, the light floods in. So how do you draw back the curtain? How do you open the clenched fist of your fear? You begin by calling it out, not to shame it, but to release it. You breathe. You lift your gaze. You speak not to the problem, but to the soul within you that has never been touched by fear. You remember, I am not this panic. I am not this tightness. I am not this illusion of disconnection. I am the soul, and I know. This remembrance is not conceptual. It is vibrational. And the moment you enter it even slightly, the miracle begins to move again, because the current is clear. Let me offer you this sacred metaphor. A sealed jar placed into the ocean will remain empty. Though surrounded by water, it receives nothing. But the moment its seal is broken, the ocean rushes in it slowly, not partially, but completely. Such is the nature of divine help. It does not trickle, it floods, but only into what is open. You must become the open jar. You must unseal your vibration. You must say, I surrender my fear not because I feel ready, but because I am ready to receive. The miracle does not need your perfection. It needs your availability. And here is the mystery. The very moment you stop needing the miracle to prove your safety, it appears not as reward, but as resonance, not as compensation, but as consequence. Because fear no longer blocks the signal. So say this softly in your heart now. I release the vibration of fear. I open to the current of trust. I am not separate. I am not forgotten. I do not plead, remember. This is how the miracle finds you. Not in your panic, but in your peace. There is a sacred law woven into the fabric of this universe, hidden not in some distant galaxy, but humming in the very breath that passes between your words. This law is the law of vibrational speech, a divine truth, known to the ancient rishis, understood by the saints, and demonstrated in the miracles witnessed by those who dared to speak not from fear, but from realization. Every sound carries a frequency. Every word is a vessel. And when that word is filled with faith, with remembrance, with soul alignment, it becomes a vehicle of transformation, not poetic, but vibrational, not metaphorical, but literal. I have told my disciples, words saturated with sincerity, conviction, faith, and intuition are like bombs, which when set off, shatter the rocks of difficulties and create the change desired. Why? Because the universe does not respond to emotion alone. It does not respond to empty words, no matter how beautiful. It responds to vibration, and vibration is purified intention brought into speech through stillness. When the soul speaks, not the mind, not the persona, but the soul, it sends out a tone that reshapes reality. And yet, even more mysteriously, the sages knew that one utterance is not enough. Just as a bell must be struck 3 times to vibrate through space and silence, so must the sacred phrase be spoken 3 times to fully descend through the layers of your being. The first time, it awakens the mind. The second, it pierces the heart. The third, it enters the soul, anchoring itself in the deep current of your divine identity. This is why, in every tradition, from mantra to psalm to prayer, you will find the power of 3-fold repetition. Not because God is hard of hearing, but because you are awakening yourself to different levels of receptivity. Let us speak more plainly. When you say a phrase once, the ego may still be speaking. It may say the words with uncertainty, with detachment, with a flickering candle of belief. But when you say it again, something begins to shift. The body relaxes, the mind slows, the awareness drops from head to heart. And by the 3rd repetition, if spoken with reverence and focus, you are no longer just saying the phrase, you are becoming the vibration it carries. Think of the sacred syllable, the primordial sound of creation. When spoken once, it echoes. When spoken thrice, it aligns. First, it clears the physical. Then, it purifies the astral. Finally, it opens the causal, the soul center, the God gate within. This is the path your own phrase must follow. It is not a chant of magic, it is a bridge to union. And the 3 repetitions are the 3 footsteps of the soul out of mind, into spirit, into source. So when I tell you to speak the phrase 3 times, I am not giving you a technique, I am handing you a vibrational ladder. Each rung you climb is not just a sound, but a frequency shift. And you must speak slowly, reverently, with full attention. There is no power in rushing, there is no light in mindless repetition. But there is infinite transformation in the words spoken with soul presence. Let us take a moment now to prepare, even before you learn the phrase. Sit, close the eyes, let your breath slow, feel your body soften, gaze upward not with strain, but with quiet longing, and say within, when I speak with soul, the universe rearranges. When I speak with faith, the darkness dissolves. When I speak 3 times, I remember who I am. Feel that. That is not wishful thinking. That is alignment. In the coming moment, you will receive the phrase itself, sacred utterance of soul remembrance, not to summon miracles, but to unlock their frequency. And when you speak it 3 times. First for your mind, so it may quiet. Second, for your heart, so it may open. Third, for your soul, so it may awaken. This is the law of divine speech. Not many words, not loud incantations, just truth, spoken 3 times, from silence into silence. Now, dear one, you are ready. Not because you have achieved some distant perfection, not because the pain is gone or the path is clear, but because your heart has been made soft enough by surrender, and your breath steady enough by stillness, to receive what cannot be understood by the mind, but only recognized by the soul. The phrase I will give you now is not mine. It is not a prescription or formula. It is not a string of words strung together to impress God or manipulate results. It is a key cut to fit the sacred lock within you. It is a vibrational instrument, and like all true sacred speech, it was given from the divine to the soul, not to plead, but to remember. Say this slowly, reverently, aloud, or within 3 times. Aum Shanti Aum. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Let it fall like water upon the desert of your doubt. Let it echo in the hollow of your waiting. Let it rise like incense in the chamber of your breath. This phrase is not about asking. It is not even about believing. It is about being. Being in the frequency where miracles become the inevitable outpouring of divine order. Each word is chosen, not for sound alone, but for the reality it awakens. Let us now break open this phrase, line by sacred line. Aum Shanti Aum. The alpha and omega of vibration. Aum is not a sound to the ear, it is a frequency of the soul. It is the cosmic syllable that reverberates through the fabric of all creation, the pulse behind every form, the breath behind every breath. When you speak Aum, you are not just chanting, you are tuning. Tuning your awareness to the level where divine intelligence already moves. And between those twin Aums, there is Shanti, peace, but not the peace of absence or numbness. Shanti is the state in which miracles feel no resistance. It is the vibrational stillness where the impossible feels normal. Between 2 invocations of cosmic vibration, you anchor the field of inner peace, like an eye in the center of your personal storm. I am not forgotten. This is the great reversal. This is the soul throwing off the blanket of illusion. So many souls live not in sin, but in spiritual amnesia. They believe, consciously or unconsciously, that God has turned away, that their cries are unheard, that their pain is unimportant, that somehow they were overlooked. But to speak, I am not forgotten, is to tear through that veil. It is to declare, even when circumstances scream otherwise, that the light has never stopped watching, that the presence has always been near, waiting not to arrive, but to be remembered. You are not forgotten, not in this breath, not in the silence, not in the chaos. You are not forgotten because you were never lost. You were only looking away. I am remembered by God. And now, the final seed is planted not as hope, but as declaration. This is not about sentimentality. This is a statement of metaphysical alignment. To be remembered by God is to be drawn back into divine circulation. It is to be seen again as you have always been, radiant, whole, untouchable by fear. When you say, I am remembered by God, you are not summoning some remote deity. You are aligning your inner frequency with the memory of the infinite. You are saying, I accept divine orchestration. I yield to the unfolding. I return to the current that never left me. This remembrance is not mental, it is vibrational. And in that vibration, karma bends, doors open, healing begins. Not because you forced a change, but because you entered the place where change was already waiting. Speak this phrase now, not as practice, but as re-entry. Aum Shanti Aum. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Say it once for the mind that doubted. Say it again for the heart that ached. Say it again for the soul that now stands up within you. Let it ring out. Let it whisper through your breath. Let it install itself as the new axis of your being. You are not forgotten. You are remembered. And from that remembrance, The miracle is already forming. Now that you have received the sacred phrase Aum Shanti Aum, I am not forgotten, I am remembered by God, it is not enough to speak it casually, as though it were another affirmation to be whispered in the flurry of morning routines or the desperation of midnight prayers. No, this phrase is a living vessel, and like any sacred vessel, it must be held properly, offered properly, spoken from the altar of reverence and silence. When said with right posture, with still gaze, and with the sacred rhythm of breath, these words do not remain words, they become a vibration that calls forth the miraculous from the unseen. You do not merely speak them, you are meant to enter them. Let me guide you now into the ritual of saying it, not ritual for the sake of form, but because the soul requires preparation to fully inhabit remembrance. Begin by choosing a place of stillness. It may be your meditation corner, a space by your window, the foot of your bed, or the quiet space between responsibilities where the world pauses just long enough for you to return inward. Wherever it is, let that space become holy not by incense or ornament, but by your presence. Now sit. Let the spine rise upright, not rigid, but dignified. Imagine the spine as a golden rod, connecting the base of your being to the crown of your divine inheritance. Let the shoulders fall back naturally. Let the chest resonate with pride, but as though the heart is remembering how to be open. Place the hands softly on the knees or in the palms up, in readiness to receive. Tilt the chin slightly downward. And now, most sacred of all, lift your gaze to the spiritual eye, the point between the eyebrows, not with strain, but with longing, with devotion. This gaze is the invisible signal to your soul that you are entering the temple. It is the flashlight of the inner world. It is the doorway through which intuition descends. Now bring awareness to the breath, not to control it, but to greet it. Let it soften. Let it lengthen. Then gently guide it into a 4-count inhale through the nose. Let the breath rise through the spine like golden mist. Hold it softly for a moment at the top, letting the energy gather at the spiritual eye. Then release it through the mouth or nose in a 6-count exhale, long, slow, as though letting go of all that no longer belongs in this vibration. Inhale peace. Exhale noise. Inhale remembrance. Exhale resistance. When you have completed 3 of these breaths, and the mind has grown quiet, and the heart has softened, and the inner gaze has become still, you are ready to speak. Do not rush. Do not whisper mindlessly. Speak each line with sacred weight, like you are placing golden bricks into the foundation of your new vibration. And speak it 3 times. Aum Shanti Aum. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Let the first repetition rise from the mind. Let it clear the fog of thought. Let it stabilize your focus. This is the bell that awakens the first gate. Let the second repetition rise from the heart. Speak it more slowly now. Let it touch the ache you've carried, the longing you buried. This is the balm. This is the warmth that melts the coldness of doubt. Let the third repetition rise from the soul. Let it vibrate upward. Let it be less of a statement and more of a homecoming. This is not speech anymore, it is recognition. Then stop. Do not rush to rise. Do not look for results. Sit in the echo. Sit in the space the words have created. Let there be 30 seconds of silence. You may feel nothing. You may feel everything. You may feel only breath. But something is shifting deep in your field, deep in the fabric of your timeline. The miracle is not delayed. It is arriving in waves of stillness. This is how you speak the sacred phrase, not with performance, not with desperation, but with posture, with breath, with gaze, with devotional presence. Because what you say is less important than how you say it, and how you say it determines what you become as you say it. Repeat this process when you are in crisis. Repeat it when you are unsure. Repeat it not to summon something new, but to return to what was always waiting. Let your body memorize this ritual. Let your breath carry it like a mantra. Let your gaze become the bridge between your human condition and your divine inheritance. You do not just speak a miracle into existence. You speak yourself back into the place where miracles already live. The moment you speak the sacred phrase with stillness, sincerity, and soul alignment, something profound begins to unravel, not in the heavens above, but within the hidden chamber of your own being. The mind may expect lightning, The heart may anticipate fireworks, but the true miracle enters not with drama, but with a silence so rich, so intimate, that the ego almost misses it. It does not descend from the sky, it rises from within you, like a lotus that has always been waiting beneath the surface of your breath. And that is when the truth begins to dawn. The miracle is not on its way, it is already here. It was never far. It was never delayed. It was never denied. It was only waiting for you to remember your part in it. So many seekers live in the illusion that the miracle is a future event, a grace withheld by some mysterious divine timing, a prize dangled just beyond reach. They imagine God as a distant force, measuring out blessings with reluctant hands, waiting to be moved by enough tears, enough desperation, enough obedience. But this, dear soul, is not the God who watches over you. This is the projection of the frightened mind, not the reality of the infinite beloved. God is not waiting. You are the one who is waiting to lift the veil, waiting to speak from the soul, waiting to tune yourself to the frequency of what has already been given. Imagine now a radiant vault filled with the answers you seek, the peace you crave, the provision your life calls for. This vault is not in heaven. It is not locked in time. It is not guarded by punishment. It is within you, vibrating at a frequency just above the noise of thought, just beyond the fog of fear. The key to this vault is not action, it is alignment. The password is not logos, it is remembrance. And the moment you speak the sacred phrase, Om Shanti Om, I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God from a place of inward stillness. You are not requesting access. You are re-entering the vibration where the vault opens of its own accord. Do not be fooled by appearances. Just because your outer life has not yet reshaped itself does not mean the miracle has not already begun. The laws of spirit move first in silence, then in energy, then in form. When you shift your vibration, the timeline begins to bend. The causes begin to rearrange. The old karmic dominoes begin to fall in new directions. But you may not see it yet. That does not mean it isn't happening. That does not mean the miracle failed. It means you must learn to trust what you feel before you can see what will manifest. Think of the sun on a cloudy day. The light is still there, radiant, unwavering, but the clouds obscure it. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the wind begins to shift. The clouds begin to part. And suddenly, the light that was always there floods the world again. This is the nature of the miracle. It does not come. It emerges. It reveals itself as the truth that was always beneath the illusion. You do not call it forth. You clear the field so it may rise. This is why I say, the miracle is not a transaction. It is not God responding to your request. It is God remembering himself through you. It is the divine stirring in your own heart and saying, yes, I have never left. You are not alone. You are not lost. You are my child, and the light you seek is the light you are. When you speak from that place, even once the universe begins to shift around you, not because you earned it, but because you aligned with it. Not because you pushed hard enough, but because you finally became still enough to receive. So let these words become your anchor when doubt returns. God never left the room. I simply stopped listening. The miracle is not coming. I have returned to where it has always been. Now breathe, gaze upward, and feel it not as something to imagine, but as something to remember. The miracle is not a future. It is not a fantasy. It is not a hope. It is a presence already here. And now, so are you. Let me now draw back the veil and tell you not of theories, but of things I have seen with my own eyes, of moments when the laws of this world bowed before the higher laws of spirit, when suffering was dissolved in a breath of divine remembrance, when what was called impossible became not only possible, but inevitable through alignment. These are not stories designed to dazzle you, but truths meant to awaken your trust not in me, but in the power that lives within you now, closer than breath, waiting to be recognized. I remember a man once bound to his bed with a body failing from what the world called incurable disease. His eyes were tired not only from pain, but from the resignation that nothing more could be done. He had tried all that doctors could offer, had recited countless prayers without hope, and now lay beneath the heavy cloak of despair. But on the day he looked into my eyes, I told him, "You are not your sickness. You are not this sentence of the flesh. You are the immortal soul, and the soul cannot be touched by disease. I asked him not to plead but to remember, to sit in silence, to breathe, and to speak not from fear but from identity. Inwardly, he chanted the holy name. He aligned his awareness to that vibration, and within days, not years, the sickness began to vanish. Not through miracle as escape, but through miracle as alignment with his eternal self. Another time, a disciple stood before me, trembling not from illness but from lack. She had lost her job. The bills had mounted. Her mind was spinning in terror. She said, "Master, I have no money. What shall I do?" I did not give her currency. I gave her vibration. I told her, "Sit, gaze upward, say this: I am God's child. I live in God's abundance. Say it not once, but until you feel it." And she did. She sat day after day, tuning herself to divine supply, not as a beggar pleading for coins, but as a soul remembering her inheritance. And then, as naturally as breath returns after pause, an opportunity arose, unexpected, precise, timely. The funds arrived. The path unfolded. And she said to me, "It felt as though the universe knew my name." I told her it did, but it was she who had remembered it first. I have watched storms, physical, emotional, karmic, disperse in the silence of God remembrance. I have seen souls on the verge of collapse find peace, not because the world changed, but because their frequency did. One devotee, tortured by endless anxiety, came to me trembling, unsure if he would survive the weight of his own thoughts. I said, "Still your breath. Gaze at the Christ within. Speak no more to your fear. Speak instead to the presence." He did, and in a single meditation, yes, in one sitting, the bondage began to break. The mind softened. The terror melted. He became anchored, not in safety of circumstance, but in the vibration of eternal protection. From that day, he was different not because of technique, but because of remembrance. And so I say to you, the miracle is not for the chosen. It is not for the lucky. It is not for those born into circumstance or lineage. It is for the one who says, "I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God." It is for the one who turns the gaze inward, slows the breath, and speaks the sacred phrase not to attract power, but to return to it. These miracles are not rare. They are not exceptional. They are the normal behavior of a soul who lives in alignment. They are the natural result of one who speaks from the divine identity rather than from the ego's panic. And now, you too have that key. Do not ask, "Can this work for me?" Instead ask, "Am I willing to speak as the soul and not as the shadow?" Say it now, softly. The miracle is not a gift, it is my nature. The light does not delay, it waits for my return. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. These are not words from a teacher to a student. These are truths from your soul to itself. And in their echo, the miracle is already breathing. You have heard the phrase. You have understood its power. You have felt the weight of remembrance stirring in your soul like an ancient melody being played again after lifetimes of silence. Now the question arises not how to summon miracles, for they are already near, but how to live in the vibration that welcomes them. This is where the mind must yield, not to belief alone, but to ritualized stillness. Not habit for the sake of discipline, but practice for the sake of alignment. The miracle does not respond to panic. It does not arrive through performance. It is activated through presence, and presence must be prepared. Let me give you now a sacred protocol, a simple, profound, 5-step process to awaken the miracle current that surrounds you at all times. This is not merely instruction. It is an inner temple you will enter daily, and in that temple, the impossible will begin to reshape itself into inevitability. Come with sincerity. Come with breath. Come with the longing not just for change, but for union with the source behind the change. Step 1. Sit upright in silence. Begin by honoring the body not as a burden, but as a vessel of divine energy. Find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Sit upright, not stiffly, but with reverence. Let the spine become the altar, the throne upon which the soul takes its rightful seat. This is not ordinary sitting, it is enthronement. Let your body signal to all planes, subtle, engrossed that you are ready to remember. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of listening. And in this first step, you are not asking for anything. You are preparing to receive. Step 2. Breathe slowly for 60 seconds. Let the breath become your sacred boat across the turbulent sea of thought. Inhale gently through the nose, counting to 4. Let the breath rise like sunlight through your spine. Then exhale slowly, counting to 6, allowing all contraction, all anxiety, all effort to melt. Let every breath be a prayer without words. Do this for at least 1 minute. With each breath, the surface mind softens, the emotional currents settle, and your awareness drops deeper closer to the current where divine instruction flows. Step 3. Speak the sacred phrase 3 times. Now, with heart open and gaze softly lifted to the point between the eyebrows, speak. Om Shanti Om. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Do not rush. Let each repetition descend further. First for the mind, then for the heart, and finally for the soul. Speak not as one trying to convince but as one awakening a truth that has always been. Feel the phrase not as concept, but as frequency. As you say it the 3rd time, let go of all agenda. The miracle is already moving. Your only task is to stay open. Step 4. Sit silently, visualizing the soul as radiant light. After the 3rd repetition, become still. Let your awareness remain lifted. Picture your soul not as a form, but as a field-sphere of golden white light, seated where your heart beats, expanding beyond your skin. Let this light grow brighter with every breath. See it move outward, touching the timeline ahead of you, touching the need you carry, touching the space where the miracle must unfold. You do not control it, you simply witness it. Let yourself rest in that light not for answers, but for absorption. Step 5. Open your eyes and walk forward, as if it's already happening. The final step is not mental, it is not verbal, it is embodiment. When you open your eyes, do not leave the vibration behind. Carry it. Let it inform your walk, your tone, your posture. You are no longer seeking the miracle, you are living from it. The outer world may not yet reflect it, but your soul does. And the outer will bend in time to match the vibration now installed within. This is your protocol. Not to be performed out of habit, but to be practiced as a return to remembrance. Each time you do this, you chisel away the noise of Maya and step more fully into the current where divine orchestration becomes the default. It is not the prayer that moves the mountain. It is the alignment that makes the mountain irrelevant. So begin today, and again tomorrow, and again in every moment when fear knocks. This is your doorway. This is your reset. This is the throne from which the soul speaks and the universe listens. Say it with me now. Once more. Om Shanti Om. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Now breathe, stand up, and walk forward not as a beggar of miracles, but as one who has become their living proof. Now we come to the deepest threshold, the most subtle and often most hidden obstacle of all. Not the fear that resists miracles, not the doubt that delays them, but the desire that clings to them so tightly it chokes the very vibration they require to appear. Yes, dear soul, there is a truth that must be spoken now, with the sharpness of clarity and the softness of love. Sometimes the greatest block to a miracle is not disbelief, it is attachment. When you want the miracle more than you want God, you unknowingly exile yourself from the very current where the miracle lives. Let this not be misunderstood. It is not wrong to desire healing, to seek relief, to long for provision or clarity. These are human cries, and God hears them all. But when that desire becomes obsession, when it becomes neediness, panic, or the center of your devotion, it replaces the infinite with the finite. It trades the eternal for the temporary. And in doing so, it constricts the breath of the soul. The heart begins to serve the outcome instead of the source. The prayer becomes transactional. The vibration tightens. And the miracle, which once circled your aura like a dove, ready to descend, finds no place to land. I have seen it countless times. A devotee prays with fervor. They speak the sacred words. They perform the practice. Yet still the breakthrough does not come. Why? Because beneath the stillness is grasping. Beneath the devotion is an unspoken contract. I will seek you, God, so long as you give me this. But the divine does not make such contracts. God does not operate on bargains. God waits not in cruelty, but in wisdom for the moment when the seeker stops chasing the miracle and starts longing once again for union with the giver. And in that moment of release, of trust beyond condition, of love without agenda, miracle arrives. Not always as expected, but always in truth. Let us use a metaphor. Imagine a clenched fist, closed tightly around what it hopes to receive. That fist cannot receive anything not because the universe is cruel, but because the hand is closed. Now imagine that hand slowly opening, fingers softening, the palm lifting toward heaven not in demand, but in surrender. That open hand becomes a chalice. That chalice becomes the container for the light to pour in. What changed? Not the availability of the light, but the readiness of the vessel. Wanting the miracle is natural, but you must want the presence more than the product. You must say, with the humility of the saints, even if the form does not change, let me not lose my contact with thee. For the greatest miracle is not the shift of the outer, it is the unshakable peace that comes from union with the inner light. And paradoxically, it is that very peace that clears the way for the outer change to finally manifest. Here is the deepest spiritual paradox I can offer you. The miracle often appears the moment you no longer need it to validate God's love. The moment you say, even if nothing shifts, I remain held, the vibration becomes so pure, so open, so surrendered, that divine law begins to move on your behalf not as reward, but as reflection. The soul that clings cannot receive. The soul that rests in God cannot be denied. Say these words now, not as poetry, but as purification. I release the outcome. I surrender the craving. I want the giver more than the gift. I want the light more than the healing. I want union more than change. And in that wanting, I already receive. Let the phrase you've learned, Om Shanti Om, I am not forgotten, I am remembered by God, become not a tool for acquisition, but a bell of remembrance. Let it ring through your being until every corner of craving melts in the fire of presence. Let your miracle be not what you gain, but who you become. And then without need, without fear, without demand, you will turn around, and the miracle will already be walking beside you. Now that the ego has been unmasked, and the breath has been softened, and the soul has begun to stir beneath the shell of fear and craving, it is time to do what must be done. If any miracle is to become more than a fleeting experience, you must install the identity that allows the miracle to remain. Too often, seekers momentarily enter the right frequency through prayer, through meditation, through the sacred phrase, and yet the old self quickly returns. The old doubts reclaim their territory. The familiar suffering slides back in like mist around the ankles of a traveler who stopped walking. This is why identity must not be glimpsed. It must be anchored. The universe does not respond to what you want, it responds to what you are willing to become. And this means you must declare, daily, from your breath, from your posture, from your gaze, from your soul, I am remembered, I am radiant, I am in God's current now. This is not a motivational slogan. This is a mystical realignment. You are not trying to become this truth. You are reclaiming what you were before you forgot. Every spiritual practice, every sacred phrase, every moment of silence has pointed to this. The miracle is not an event. It is a byproduct of identity. If you live as one who is forgotten, the field around you will dim. But if you live, walk, breathe, speak, think as one who is already remembered by God, then the light will cling to you like morning dew on a holy flower. Let us build this identity now, not through logic, not through analysis, but through somatic affirmation word wedded to breath, to body, to vibration. Sit once more, spine upright, heart soft. Hands resting gently, palm over heart. Close your eyes. Gaze inward, to the spiritual eye not as one who searches, but as one who has found. Now inhale gently, hold. And on the exhale, say softly, either aloud or within, I am remembered. Again inhale. Feel the vibration gather in the heart. Exhale, I am radiant. One more time inhale, long and reverent. Exhale with quiet power. I am in God's current now. Repeat this entire loop 3 times as sacred cadence of integration. The first time, let the mind hear it. The second, let the heart believe it. The third, let the soul know it. After the third loop, pause. Sit in the stillness. Let the vibration spread beyond words, like scent from a divine flower. Do not rush. Do not open your eyes until the vibration feels complete. What you are doing is not merely affirming, you are rewiring your field. You are lifting the antenna of your consciousness until it picks up only the divine frequency of remembrance. From this vibration, choices will become clear. The path will feel smoother. Resistance will fade without you having to fight it. Why? Because you are no longer trying to survive in a world that forgets, you are now living in the inner world that remembers you always. The soul that affirms its identity as remembered by God becomes a beacon, and the currents of life begin to flow around it with effortless grace. Even obstacles become reconfigured as tools. Even delays become sacred timing. Even the pain begins to soften, because it no longer defines who you are. This is not imagination. This is alignment. So speak the loop again whenever you forget. I am remembered. I am radiant. I am in God's current now. Say it before you leave your house. Say it before you speak to someone in fear. Say it before you act, before you decide, before you doubt. Let this be your reset, your remembering, your return. The one who says, I am remembered, is the one through whom miracles walk unannounced, like old friends entering a house already filled with light. And now we arrive at the sacred close, not an end, but a return. Not a conclusion, but a consecration. You have journeyed through the wilderness of fear and the desert of effort. You have climbed the inner ladder from begging to breathing, from panic to presence. You have learned that a miracle is not something sent to you from a far-off throne, but something waiting to rise within you the moment you remember who you are. And now, with your breath softened, your spine aligned, and your soul gently awake, I offer you not another teaching, but a benediction, a sealing of the vibration we have been building together since the first syllable of your longing. There will still be days, perhaps even tomorrow, when the shadow will try to return. The body will feel heavy. The mind will grow loud. The world will whirl around you in its parade of illusion and noise. You may feel tempted again to grasp, to beg, to try to force life into your hands. And in those moments when you feel most vulnerable, most afraid, most unseen, I want you to stop. Sit down. Do not move outward, move inward. Close your eyes. And say this phrase not as someone who is broken, but as someone who is finally ready to be whole. Om Shanti Om. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Say it not with the trembling voice of desperation, but with the calm certainty of one who has touched the edge of eternity and heard their name spoken there. Say it 3 times, each time deeper, slower, truer. Let it descend from the lips into the chest, from the chest into the spine, from the spine into the field around you. Let it surround your thoughts like a cloak of light. Let it wrap your nerves, your doubts, your fatigue in the vibration of divine care. Let it become your breath when all other breath feels short. Let it become your compass when all other directions seem lost. Let it become your root when the winds of life howl against you. Let it become your altar when all the temples of the world have gone quiet. Because this phrase is not a tool, it is a place within your consciousness where the presence of God always dwells. A place where the soul lives untouched by karma, unshaken by time, untouched by sorrow. A place where miracles do not need to be requested because they are already part of the architecture of your being. Say it when you have no one else to speak to. Say it when you're driving and don't know where you're going. Say it when you are falling asleep and feel the ache of uncertainty in your chest. Say it when the body hurts and the mind won't stop. Say it when the answer hasn't come. Say it when the door seems closed. Say it not to change reality, but to remember that reality is never the final authority vibration is, and you are now its master, not through power, but through surrender. Let your final act today be one of silent anchoring. Gaze upward. Let your breath be gentle, and speak within. I walk in divine timing. I breathe in God's memory. I am not waiting for the miracle. I am the miracle remembering itself. And now, for the final time in this journey, let the sacred phrase rise like a sunrise from the still ocean of your soul. Om Shanti Om. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Om Shanti Om. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Om Shanti Om. I am not forgotten. I am remembered by God. Go now. Not as the seeker, but as the soul. Not as the asker, but as the answer. Not as one who pleads, but as one who vibrates with divine remembrance. And know this, you are not forgotten. Your miracle is not delayed. Say this and step back into the vibration where the impossible becomes inevitable. I send you now the vibration I dwell in. May it become the atmosphere you walk in. May it shield you when the mind forgets. May it lift you when the world pulls down. May it echo through every breath until the breath becomes light itself. In your darkest moments of fear, when anxiety grips your heart and terror fills your mind, you can speak 3 simple words that have protected saints and sages for thousands of years. This sacred formula instantly connects you to divine power that's stronger than any earthly fear, more reliable than any human protection, and available to you right now regardless of your circumstances. But most people never learn this divine secret, and they suffer needlessly in fear when perfect safety is just 3 words away. What I'm about to share has the power to transform your most terrifying moments into experiences of absolute divine protection and peace. In the next 45 minutes, you're going to learn the most powerful protection prayer I've ever discovered. 3 sacred words that instantly connect you to God's infinite protective power. You'll understand why this formula works when other prayers seem to fail, how to speak these words with the faith that activates divine protection, and most importantly, how to use this practice to transform from someone who lives in fear into someone who walks in perfect trust. You'll discover the spiritual science behind divine protection. Learn to recognize when fear is attacking your soul rather than warning you of real danger, and receive practical techniques for maintaining God's protective presence around you at all times. This isn't just about feeling better when you're scared. It's about developing unshakable faith in divine love that makes fear impossible. By the end of this teaching, you'll possess a spiritual tool that can protect you from every form of fear, from minor worries to paralyzing terror. And you'll understand how to live in such constant awareness of God's protection that anxiety becomes a thing of the past. I know how it feels when fear grips your heart and makes your mind race with terrible possibilities. Whether it's worry about your health, anxiety about your future, terror about losing loved ones, or that nameless dread that sometimes wakes you in the middle of the night, fear has a way of making you feel small, helpless, and alone against forces too big to handle. You've probably tried reasoning with your fears, distracting yourself with activities, or even taking medications to calm anxiety. Some of these approaches might provide temporary relief, but the fear always returns because you're treating symptoms rather than addressing the spiritual root of fear itself. The truth is, fear isn't primarily a mental or emotional problem. It's a spiritual problem that requires a spiritual solution. Fear is what happens when we forget our divine protection and feel separated from God's infinite love and power. No amount of positive thinking or psychological technique can substitute for the direct experience of divine protection that comes through authentic spiritual practice. What I'm going to teach you today comes from the same spiritual science that has protected saints and sages throughout history. This isn't theory or philosophy. It's practical divine technology that works immediately when applied with sincere faith. Today, we'll explore 4 sacred dimensions of divine protection that will transform your relationship with fear forever. First, I'll reveal the 3 words themselves and the spiritual science behind why this formula connects you instantly to God's protective power. You'll understand how divine protection actually works and why these specific words create such powerful results. Then, we'll discover how to speak these words with the faith and devotion that activates their protective power. Many people know spiritual formulas, but don't understand how to use them effectively. I'll teach you the inner attitude and spiritual approach that makes this protection prayer work miracles in your life. Next, I'll share the specific situations where this formula is most powerful and how to adapt it for different types of fear. Whether you're facing physical danger, emotional threats, spiritual attacks, or general anxiety, you'll learn to apply this divine protection appropriately and effectively. Finally, we'll explore how to live in continuous awareness of God's protection so that fear becomes impossible rather than just manageable. This goes beyond using the formula when fear arises. It's about developing such constant connection to divine love that fear can't take root in your consciousness. But here's what might surprise you most. This formula doesn't just protect you from external threats, it actually transforms your entire spiritual relationship with God from distant worship into intimate trust. When you truly know that divine protection surrounds you always, everything changes. What we'll discover today will give you complete victory over fear and absolute confidence in divine love. You'll never again feel helpless against anxiety, worry, or terror, because you'll possess the spiritual key that unlocks God's infinite protective power. So prepare to learn the sacred words that can transform any moment of fear into an experience of divine love and protection. My beloved friend, the 3 words that can instantly surround you with God's protection are deceptively simple, yet they carry the full power of divine love when spoken with sincere faith. These sacred words are, God protects me. I know what you might be thinking. These words seem almost too simple to carry such profound power. But this is precisely why they work so effectively. Divine truth is always simple, accessible to every heart regardless of education or spiritual sophistication. The most powerful spiritual formulas are those that any sincere soul can understand and apply immediately. These 3 words, God protects me, contain within them the entire science of divine protection. When you speak them with genuine faith, you're not just making a hopeful statement. You're declaring a fundamental spiritual truth that activates divine forces throughout the universe on your behalf. Let me explain the spiritual science behind why these specific words create such powerful protection. Each word in this formula carries precise spiritual significance that connects you to different aspects of divine power. The word God invokes the infinite source of all protection, love, and strength in the universe. When you speak this sacred name with reverence and faith, you're calling upon the same divine power that created galaxies, sustains all life, and governs the movement of every atom in existence. This isn't a distant deity you're addressing, but the intimate divine presence that lives within your own heart and surrounds your life with constant care. The word protects declares your faith in divine action on your behalf. You're not just hoping that God might help you, you're affirming with certainty that divine protection is already active in your life. This word transforms your consciousness from begging for help to confidently claiming the protection that is your birthright as a child of God. The word me personalizes this divine protection, making it immediate and specific to your current situation. You're not speaking about abstract spiritual principles, but declaring that you, in this moment, are surrounded by active divine protection that nothing can penetrate. When these 3 words are combined and spoken with faith, they create what I call a divine invocation, a spiritual formula that immediately connects your consciousness to God's protective presence. This isn't magic or superstition. It's spiritual science based on the fundamental law that consciousness attracts what it focuses upon with faith and conviction. But here's the crucial point most people miss. The power of these words doesn't lie in their sound or syllables, but in the spiritual reality they represent and your faith in that reality. Divine names and formulas work because they help focus your consciousness on divine truth rather than on fear and limitation. I learned this principle during a terrifying experience early in my spiritual life. I was traveling alone through a dangerous area when I suddenly found myself surrounded by hostile individuals who clearly meant harm. Fear paralyzed my mind and body as I realized I had no physical means of protection or escape. In that moment of absolute helplessness, these 3 words arose spontaneously in my consciousness. God protects me. I repeated them not as a desperate plea, but as a declaration of truth that I felt in my heart despite the terrifying circumstances. As I continued affirming, God protects me, with complete faith, an extraordinary transformation occurred. The hostile individuals suddenly became confused and disoriented, as if they couldn't quite see me clearly or remember why they had approached. Within minutes, they wandered away, leaving me completely unharmed. I stood there amazed, realizing I had witnessed divine protection manifest in direct response to faith-filled invocation. This experience taught me that God protects me isn't just comforting words. It's a spiritual reality that becomes active the moment we align our consciousness with divine truth rather than with fear. The spiritual principle at work here is what I call consciousness magnetism. Whatever you focus your consciousness upon with strong faith and feeling, you attract into your experience. When you focus on fear with conviction, you magnetize fearful experiences. When you focus on divine protection with equal conviction, you magnetize protective experiences. Most people unconsciously use this spiritual law against themselves. When fear arises, they focus intensely on what might go wrong, imagining terrible outcomes with vivid detail and strong emotion. This fearful focus actually attracts more situations that confirm their fears, creating a cycle of anxiety and unfortunate experiences. But when you learn to redirect your consciousness toward divine protection, the moment fear arises, you reverse this destructive cycle. Instead of magnetizing what you're afraid of, you magnetize the divine protection that can prevent or transform any threatening situation. The words "God protects me" serve as a spiritual anchor that keeps your consciousness focused on divine truth, rather than allowing it to spiral into fearful imagination. Each repetition strengthens your connection to divine protection and weakens fear's grip on your mind and heart. However, there's an important distinction between mechanical repetition and genuine invocation. Simply saying, "God protects me," without faith or feeling will have limited effect. These words must be spoken from the heart, with complete trust in their truth, and with conscious connection to the divine presence they invoke. When you speak these words as genuine invocation, several things happen simultaneously in your consciousness. First, your attention shifts from the object of fear to the source of protection. Instead of focusing on what threatens you, you focus on what protects you. This shift alone often dissolves the fear because you realize you're not alone against threatening circumstances. Second, speaking divine truth aloud helps overcome the mental confusion that fear creates. Fear clouds your judgment and makes you forget your divine connection. But declaring, "God protects me," reminds your conscious mind of spiritual realities that fear wants you to forget. Third, this invocation creates what I call a protective energy field around your consciousness. Just as physical objects can be surrounded by protective barriers, your consciousness can be surrounded by divine protection that deflects negative influences and attracts positive outcomes. The most important aspect of this formula is that it works regardless of your current circumstances or the severity of the threat you're facing. Divine protection isn't limited by physical laws or human limitations. God's power is infinite, available instantly, and completely reliable for anyone who calls upon it with sincere faith. I've taught these 3 words to countless souls facing every imaginable form of fear: terminal illness, financial ruin, relationship crises, physical danger, spiritual attacks, and paralyzing anxiety. In every case where the formula was applied with genuine faith, divine protection manifested in ways that amaze both the person and everyone around them. But remember, the goal isn't just to use this formula when fear arises, but to develop such constant awareness of divine protection that fear rarely arises at all. These 3 words can become a living reality in your consciousness, a truth so deeply accepted that you automatically live in divine protection rather than having to invoke it during emergencies. Now that you understand the power contained in these 3 sacred words, let me teach you how to speak them with the faith and spiritual approach that activates their full protective power. The effectiveness of "God protects me" depends not on how loudly or how often you say it, but on the quality of faith and surrender you bring to the invocation. Many people repeat spiritual formulas without results because they speak from doubt rather than trust, from desperation rather than confidence, from their fearful ego rather than their faithful soul. True faith-filled invocation requires what I call divine certainty, speaking these words with the same confidence you would have in stating an obvious physical fact. When you say, "The sun is shining," you're not hoping it might be true or trying to convince yourself of something doubtful. You're simply stating what you know to be reality. This is the quality of certainty you must bring to saying, "God protects me." You're not pleading with God to protect you or trying to convince yourself that protection might be available. You're stating a fundamental spiritual fact: God's protection surrounds you always, and you're simply acknowledging this divine reality. But how do you develop this divine certainty, especially when fear is making everything feel uncertain and dangerous? The key is understanding that divine protection isn't something you have to earn or create. It's something you already possess that you need to recognize and claim. Think of divine protection like the air around you. You don't have to beg for air to be available or worry that there might not be enough oxygen for your next breath. Air surrounds you constantly, and you receive its life-giving benefits simply by breathing naturally. You trust completely in air's availability because you understand it's always present. Divine protection operates on the same principle. God's protective love surrounds you constantly, more intimately than air, more reliable than gravity, more present than your own heartbeat. The protection is already there. Your task is simply to breathe it in through faith-filled recognition. When you say, "God protects me," with this understanding, you're not asking for protection to arrive. You're acknowledging protection that's already present. This shift from requesting to recognizing transforms desperate pleading into confident declaration. But faith-filled invocation requires more than intellectual understanding. It requires what I call heart engagement. Speaking these words from the center of your being where divine love dwells, rather than from the surface of your mind where fear operates. To engage your heart in this invocation, place your hand over your heart as you speak the words, "God protects me." Feel the words resonating in your chest rather than just thinking them in your head. Allow your heart to open with love and gratitude for divine protection, rather than just mentally repeating a formula. As you speak from your heart, visualize divine light surrounding your entire being like a protective golden bubble that nothing negative can penetrate. See this light emanating from your heart and expanding to surround your body, your immediate environment, and everyone you love. This visualization helps your consciousness connect with the spiritual reality the words represent. The breath you use while speaking this invocation is also crucial for activating its power. Shallow, anxious breathing keeps you connected to fear, while deep, peaceful breathing opens your consciousness to receive divine grace. Before speaking, "God protects me," take 3 deep, slow breaths to center your consciousness and open your heart to divine presence. Then speak the words while breathing out slowly, allowing each word to carry your complete faith and surrender. This breathing pattern helps transition your nervous system from fear to peace, while aligning your consciousness with divine protection. The number of repetitions is less important than the quality of each repetition. 3 times is often sufficient when each repetition is spoken with complete faith and heart engagement. But if you're dealing with intense fear, continue repeating until you feel the shift from anxiety to peace, from helplessness to confidence in divine care. Timing is also significant for maximum effectiveness. The moment you notice fear beginning to arise, before it gains momentum and overwhelms your consciousness, immediately begin the invocation. It's much easier to dissolve fear in its early stages than to overcome it after it has created mental and emotional chaos. But perhaps the most crucial element of faith-filled invocation is what I call grateful surrender. As you speak, "God protects me," simultaneously release your fears and worries to divine wisdom while expressing gratitude for protection that's already active in your life. This surrender isn't passive resignation, but active trust that places your entire situation in God's hands while maintaining confidence that divine love will handle everything perfectly. Combined with gratitude for protection already received, this surrender creates the receptive state that allows divine protection to manifest most powerfully. I remember teaching this practice to a student who was paralyzed by anxiety about her child's serious illness. Initially, she repeated, "God protects me," frantically, trying to force away her terror through desperate repetition. The words had little effect because they came from fear rather than faith. I taught her to slow down, breathe deeply, place her hand on her heart, and speak the words as if she were gently reminding herself of a truth she already knew, rather than desperately pleading for help she wasn't sure would come. When she shifted to this heart-centered, faith-filled approach, the change was immediate. Her breathing calmed, her body relaxed, and a sense of profound peace replaced the anxiety. More importantly, this inner peace gave her the spiritual strength to support her child and family through the crisis with wisdom and love rather than fear and panic. The quality of faith required for divine protection isn't complicated spiritual achievement available only to advanced souls. It's the simple, childlike trust that every human heart is capable of when it remembers its connection to divine love. You already possess this faith. You simply need to let it emerge by releasing the mental arguments and doubts that cover your natural trust in God's goodness. As you practice faith-filled invocation consistently, you'll notice that the words, God protects me, begin to carry increasing power and create more profound results. This isn't because the formula is getting stronger, but because your faith is deepening and your consciousness is becoming more aligned with divine truth. Eventually, you'll discover that even thinking these words silently creates immediate peace and protection because your consciousness has learned to associate them with direct experience of divine love. This is when the formula has become truly effective, when it serves as an instant connection to divine protection that transforms any situation. Now let me show you how to apply this sacred formula to every type of fear and threatening situation you might encounter, because divine protection is available for every form of challenge you could possibly face. The beauty of God protects me is its universal applicability. Unlike some prayers or practices that work only for specific situations, this divine formula can be applied to any circumstance where fear arises: physical danger, emotional threats, financial crises, health challenges, relationship problems, or spiritual attacks. Let's begin with physical safety and protection from harm. When you're facing situations where your physical well-being feels threatened, whether from accidents, violence, natural disasters, or dangerous circumstances, God protects me becomes your spiritual armor that no earthly force can penetrate. I witnessed this protective power dramatically when teaching in a region experiencing severe earthquakes. During one particularly violent tremor that sent everyone into panic, I immediately began repeating, "God protects me," with complete faith, while remaining perfectly calm in the midst of chaos. Not only did I remain safe while buildings crumbled around me, but the area immediately surrounding me seemed to experience less violent shaking, as if divine protection extended beyond my personal space to create a zone of safety for others as well. Several people later commented that they felt drawn to stay near me during the earthquake because they sensed unusual peace and protection in my vicinity. For physical protection, speak, "God protects me," while visualizing divine light forming an impenetrable shield around your body. See this protective light extending to your home, your vehicle, your workplace, and any location where you need safety. Trust that this spiritual protection is more reliable than any physical security measure because it operates through divine intelligence that knows how to prevent or transform dangerous situations. Emotional protection requires a slightly different approach because emotional threats often come from people close to us whose words or actions can wound our hearts even when they don't intend harm. When facing criticism, rejection, betrayal, or emotional manipulation, God protects me shields your inner peace from being disturbed by others' negative energy. For emotional protection, speak the formula while consciously surrounding your heart with divine love. Visualize your heart as a sacred temple that only love can enter, protected by divine light that transforms any negative energy directed toward you into blessing and understanding. I taught this practice to a student who was dealing with a constantly critical family member whose harsh words had been destroying her self-worth for years. When she learned to invoke divine protection before family gatherings and maintain "God protects me" consciousness during difficult conversations, she discovered that the critical words literally seemed to bounce off her without creating emotional pain. More remarkably, as she remained centered in divine protection rather than reacting defensively, the critical family member gradually became less harsh, as if the peaceful energy surrounding my student was transforming the entire family dynamic. Financial fears require divine protection because money worries can create such intense anxiety that they paralyze our ability to think clearly or take constructive action. When facing job loss, business failure, unexpected expenses, or general financial insecurity, God protects me reminds you that divine providence is infinitely more reliable than human resources. For financial protection, repeat the formula while affirming that God's abundance surrounds you even when physical circumstances suggest scarcity. Visualize divine light dissolving financial obstacles and creating opportunities for prosperity that serve your highest good and the good of others. Trust that divine protection includes protection from lack and limitation, because God's will for you is abundance in every area of life. This doesn't mean you'll become wealthy without effort, but that divine intelligence will guide you toward opportunities and resources that meet your needs while supporting your spiritual development. Health challenges often create the deepest fears because they threaten our very existence and ability to care for loved ones. When facing illness, injury, or physical weakness, God protects me, connects you to divine healing power that works alongside and through medical treatment to restore your body to wholeness. For health protection, speak the formula while placing your hands on the area, needing healing and visualizing divine light flowing through your entire body, restoring every cell to perfect health and vitality. Trust that divine protection includes protection from illness and injury, and that even when physical challenges arise, divine love will provide the strength, guidance, and resources needed for healing. Spiritual protection is necessary because as you develop spiritually, you may encounter negative spiritual influences that try to discourage your progress or create confusion about your path. When you sense spiritual attack, encounter people with harmful intentions, or feel surrounded by negative energy, God protects me, creates an impenetrable barrier around your soul. For spiritual protection, invoke the formula while visualizing yourself surrounded by a brilliant white light that connects you directly to God's love. See this light repelling any negative spiritual influences while attracting angelic protection and divine guidance. Relationship fears often center around loss of loved ones, rejection, or inability to find companionship. Whether you're worried about losing someone important, concerned about being alone, or struggling with conflicts that threaten important relationships, God protects me includes protection of your capacity to love and be loved. For relationship protection, speak the formula while sending divine love to everyone involved in your relationships. Trust that divine protection will preserve relationships that serve everyone's highest good, while gracefully releasing connections that have fulfilled their spiritual purpose. General anxiety and worry often have no specific focus, but create ongoing fear about unknown future threats. This nameless dread can be the most disturbing type of fear because you can't identify what you're protecting yourself from. God protects me addresses this uncertainty by affirming that divine love surrounds you regardless of what challenges might arise. For general anxiety, repeat the formula while consciously releasing all worried thoughts to divine wisdom. Instead of trying to anticipate and prepare for every possible threat, trust that divine intelligence is already aware of your needs and is arranging circumstances for your protection and blessing. In every type of fearful situation, remember that divine protection doesn't always work by removing the challenging circumstance. Sometimes protection comes through giving you the strength, wisdom, and inner peace to handle difficulties with grace. Sometimes it works by transforming the situation itself. Sometimes it provides protection by redirecting your path away from danger you weren't even aware of. The key is trusting that divine intelligence knows exactly what type of protection you need and will provide it in the way that serves your highest spiritual good. Your job is simply to invoke protection with faith and then remain open to however divine love chooses to care for you. As you apply "God protects me" to different types of fears, you'll begin to notice patterns in how divine protection manifests in your life. This growing evidence of God's faithfulness will strengthen your trust and make it easier to invoke protection with confidence in any situation. The ultimate goal isn't just to solve specific problems through divine protection, but to develop such constant awareness of God's protective presence that you live in continuous peace and confidence regardless of external circumstances. Living in continuous divine protection means more than just using the formula "God protects me" when fear arises. It means developing such constant awareness of God's protective love that fear rarely has opportunity to take root in your consciousness. This state of consciousness isn't achieved overnight, but through consistent spiritual practice that gradually transforms your habitual mental and emotional patterns from fear-based to faith-based. As this transformation occurs, you discover that peace and confidence become your natural state, while anxiety and worry become increasingly rare visitors to your awareness. The foundation of continuous divine protection is what I call morning consecration. Beginning each day by consciously placing yourself under God's protective care and maintaining that awareness throughout your daily activities. Before getting out of bed each morning, speak "God protects me" 3 times, while visualizing divine light surrounding your entire day. See this protective light accompanying you to every location you'll visit, surrounding every person you'll encounter, and blessing every activity you'll engage in. Then offer a prayer of consecration. Divine Mother, I place this day under your loving protection. Guide my thoughts, words, and actions so that I remain aligned with your will. Protect me from all harm and help me be an instrument of your protection for others I meet today. This morning practice establishes divine protection as the foundation of your day rather than something you only remember to invoke during emergencies. It creates what I call a protective field around your consciousness that influences every experience you have. Throughout the day, practice what I call protection maintenance, brief moments of reconnecting with divine protection whenever you transition between activities. Before entering your car, going to work, meeting with people, or engaging in any new activity, silently affirm, "God protects me," while consciously maintaining awareness of divine presence. These micro-practices keep your consciousness aligned with protection, rather than allowing it to drift into worry or fear. They're like spiritual tune-ups that maintain your connection to divine security throughout busy days. Evening practice is equally important for continuous protection. Before sleep, review your day with gratitude for all the ways divine protection was active in your experience, even in ways you may not have consciously noticed. Thank God for safe travel, peaceful interactions, successful completion of tasks, protection from accidents or problems that didn't occur, and the general blessing of being able to live another day in divine love. This grateful recognition helps you see patterns of protection that might otherwise go unnoticed. Then release any fears or worries about tomorrow by affirming, "God protected me today and will protect me tomorrow. I sleep in peace, surrounded by divine love." This practice helps prevent anxious thoughts from disturbing your rest and ensures that you awaken refreshed and confident rather than worried and fearful. As you maintain these daily practices consistently, you'll begin to notice that your general anxiety level decreases significantly. Situations that once triggered immediate fear responses become manageable because your consciousness is anchored in divine protection rather than personal vulnerability. This doesn't mean you become careless or naive about potential dangers. Divine protection actually enhances your wisdom and discernment, helping you recognize and avoid truly harmful situations while not being paralyzed by imaginary threats. Living in continuous protection also transforms how you relate to other people. Instead of seeing others as potential threats to your security, you begin to recognize that everyone is also held in divine love and protection. This recognition reduces interpersonal fear and allows you to interact with greater openness and compassion. When you encounter people who seem hostile or threatening, your first response becomes sending them divine protection rather than defending yourself against their negativity. This shift often transforms difficult relationships because your peaceful, protected consciousness helps others access their own connection to divine love. One of the most profound effects of continuous divine protection is that you begin to serve as a source of protection for others. Your peaceful, confident presence helps anxious people feel calmer. Your faith in divine goodness helps fearful souls remember their own spiritual security. This protective service happens naturally without effort on your part. When your consciousness is genuinely established in divine protection, that peaceful energy radiates to everyone around you, creating zones of safety and blessing wherever you go. I've witnessed this phenomenon countless times. Students who develop stable divine protection consciousness found that their homes, workplaces, and social environments became noticeably more peaceful and harmonious. People were drawn to spend time with them because they unconsciously sensed the protective spiritual atmosphere these individuals carried. The ultimate expression of living in continuous divine protection is what I call fearless service. Being willing to go wherever love is needed and do whatever service is required because you know that divine protection will accompany any activity aligned with divine will. This fearless service doesn't mean being reckless or foolish, but being willing to trust divine guidance completely and follow where love leads you, even into situations that your personality might find intimidating. When you truly know that God protects you, you become available for forms of service that would terrify an unprotected consciousness. You can comfort the dying, confront injustice, help those in danger, and speak truth in difficult situations because your security comes from divine love rather than personal safety. This is the ultimate purpose of divine protection, not just to make you comfortable and secure, but to free you to serve divine purposes without the limitations that fear imposes. When you're genuinely protected by infinite love, you become an instrument through which that love can reach souls who desperately need its blessing. The journey from fearful living to continuous divine protection is one of the most transformative spiritual paths you can undertake. As you progress on this path, you'll discover that the "God protects me" formula that once required conscious effort to invoke becomes a living reality that operates automatically in your consciousness. Eventually, you may find that you rarely need to speak these words aloud because your entire being has become a living affirmation of divine protection. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions all express the deep knowing that you live in constant divine care. This is the goal of all spiritual practice, not just to have techniques for dealing with problems, but to develop such intimate relationship with divine love that problems lose their power to disturb your peace. When you truly know that God protects you, fear becomes impossible because you understand that nothing can threaten what is truly important about your existence. My beloved friend, what we've discovered today gives you complete spiritual authority over every form of fear. You now possess the sacred formula that instantly connects you to God's infinite protective power, and you understand how to invoke this protection with the faith that creates miracle-level results. You've learned not just the 3 words themselves, but how to speak them with the inner attitude that activates divine response, how to apply this protection to every type of fear and threatening situation, and how to live in such constant awareness of divine love that fear becomes impossible. Remember, these aren't just words to memorize. They're a direct hotline to the protective power of the Almighty. Every time you speak them with sincere heart, you're calling upon divine forces that are infinitely stronger than any earthly fear or threat. The formula "God protects me" works because it aligns your consciousness with spiritual truth rather than with fear and limitation. When you declare this truth with faith, you activate divine protection that was already surrounding you but which fear had prevented you from experiencing. But the power of these words isn't magical, it's spiritual. They work through the fundamental law that consciousness attracts what it focuses upon with conviction and faith. When you focus on divine protection with complete trust, you magnetize protective experiences into your life. The key to effectiveness is the quality of faith you bring to the invocation. You must speak, "God protects me," not as desperate pleading, but as confident recognition of divine truth. This faith isn't complicated spiritual achievement. It's the simple, childlike trust that every heart is capable of when it remembers its connection to divine love. As you practice this sacred formula consistently, you'll develop such constant awareness of God's protective presence that fear rarely disturbs your peace. What began as emergency prayer becomes a living reality that governs every aspect of your existence. So the next time fear begins to rise in your heart, don't fight it with willpower or reasoning. Speak these 3 sacred words with complete faith in divine protection. God protects me. Feel the truth of these words in your heart, surrender your fear to divine love, and trust completely in the protective power that surrounds you always. I want to hear about your experiences with this divine protection formula. What fears have been troubling you most? In what situations do you feel most in need of divine protection and strength? Share in the comments below. When you express your spiritual needs openly, you invite divine grace to meet those needs. And here's a question for reflection. If you truly knew that God's protection surrounds you every moment, how would that change how you live your daily life? What fears would you release? What opportunities would you embrace? Sometimes recognizing how divine protection would transform us helps us develop the faith to actually experience it. Another question to consider: have you ever experienced a time when you felt completely safe and protected, even in a dangerous situation? What created that sense of security? Often, recognizing moments when we've already experienced divine protection helps us trust that this protection is always available. If this sacred formula has brought you peace or helped you understand divine protection in a new way, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and consider joining our YouTube membership community. Your support allows us to continue sharing these powerful spiritual tools that transform fear into faith and anxiety into absolute trust. For those seeking deeper spiritual strength and protection, join our free email community where I share additional prayers, practices, and wisdom for developing unshakable faith in divine love. You'll find the link in the description below. Remember, when you develop genuine trust in God's protection, you inspire others to discover their own divine security. Your fearless faith becomes a beacon of hope for souls who are still struggling with anxiety and terror. Every time you choose faith over fear, every moment you trust divine protection rather than worrying about threats, you contribute to the healing of our fear-sick world. Your spiritual courage gives others permission to find their own safety in divine love. When you live in the consciousness that God protects me, you become a source of protection for others as well. Your peaceful presence helps anxious souls find calm. Your confident faith reminds fearful hearts of their own divine security. Your willingness to trust in divine goodness encourages others to risk opening their hearts to love. This is the ultimate purpose of divine protection. Not just personal safety and comfort, but the capacity to serve as an instrument of divine love in a world that desperately needs to remember its spiritual security. When you're genuinely protected by infinite love, you're free to share that love without fear of loss or harm. The three words, "God protects me," can transform not only your own experience, but the experience of every person whose life you touch with faith-based living. Your protection becomes their protection. Your peace becomes their peace. Your trust becomes their inspiration to discover their own unshakable foundation in divine love. Until we meet again in the perfect safety of divine love, may you know with absolute certainty that God's protection surrounds you always. And may these three sacred words become your constant source of strength, courage, and unshakable peace. May every moment of fear become an opportunity to experience divine protection more deeply. May every challenge become evidence of God's faithful care. And may your life become a living testimony to the truth that no soul need ever feel alone or unprotected when they remember their eternal safety in divine love.